Disclosure has already begun, not from governments, but from the people. Around the world, experiencers are stepping forward with astonishing stories. Something ancient is stirring in the human soul. This is not just a documentary. This is a transmission. Welcome to the awakening.
I think the very first time I actually had some kind of contact, I may have been 3 years old, and I would see these faces at the window. It didn't scare me. They looked odd though, and I remember coming across a little plastic toy that had the same sort of E.T.-like face than what I saw at the window, and when I came across that little toy, I would collect these little toy things, but that was a confirmation that I actually had seen something. It was odd, you know, that I actually had seen what I thought I saw, and there was this little creature in this little plastic thing that looked just like what I saw. So it's like, could that have actually been a being? I mean, I didn't think of it in these kind of logical terms, but it was some kind of like, oh, this being is there, and I don't know, it was just strange, and it's like, sort of made sense to me as a child. It sort of makes sense now, but it was odd.
Well, I was the open-minded skeptic. I was the one who rolled her eyes, actually, at extraterrestrials and UFOs, and I thought it was all bunk. Never say never. And then I left this country to go work with the consciousness of plants, let's say. And I did that 4 nights, and every night the divine came and said, you're a shaman, you're a healer, you're a priestess, over and over like a mantra. And I didn't understand, I had no context. I argued, actually, for my limitations. And when I came back, I had a friend who offered me some past life regressions so that I could understand the information I was receiving. And in understanding that information, I saw very specifically a lifetime where I was a Mayan priestess, over 7 feet tall, very skinny, very powerful manifester. And before I left her, I asked her about her origins, and she telepathically said to me, I am not from here, I'm from another galaxy. So all of this skepticism and disbelief, suddenly I realized, oh, there are aspects of myself that are actually extraterrestrial, multidimensional. All of this started making sense.
So because I had this alien experience at 5 years old, I always had trouble believing science in school. Because basically all of the things that they were telling us, these laws of physics, as I started to learn, I was like, well, that's obviously not true. So I did always have a feeling from then that there was something else, and that I knew that it existed because I experienced it and my whole family experienced it. Now, as I started to dig more into consciousness and things like that, I realized that reality is really not what we think it is. That basically, and you know, that's what it comes down to with, say, alien disclosure, is that we're gonna have trouble having disclosure until we really redefine what reality is.
Childhood is not always innocence. For some, it's a gateway where memories leak through, dreams turn lucid, and the impossible becomes normal. These children remember things they've never been told, speak languages they never learned, and feel like strangers in their own homes. They weren't imagining it. The veil was already lifting.
So meeting my ET family is very interesting. What happened was, I remember I started working more in depth. I started actually understanding my empathic ability, and I could start to see things more with my mind's eye, and astral travel every single night. And I remember the one night I started talking with these beings more. I just thought they were angels of God at that time. And then I started realizing they were all kind of different and they looked different. So I was like, okay, whoever you guys are, just pull up. Just pull up and I'll do all the things you guys are saying you want me to do. And they literally did. Like, a ship came in my backyard. And I was like, whoa, you guys really did. And they're like, so you're gonna help us, right? And they kept telling me, you're one of us. You're one of us in a physical human body. And that blew my mind because it explained why I never felt at home on this planet. It felt like I was really different. So from then on, I started astral traveling every night. It was like I was doing a tour around the galaxy. It's like they were all family to me. I'll go Pleiades, Arcturus, I'll go to Andromeda, Lyra, and I realized my roots and my connection everywhere. And from then on, it was like I just found the galaxy as my home.
My first contact with ET beings was when I was 3.5 years old, and I was abducted out of my bedroom. But I don't know if I would really call it an abduction, but more of a rescue. And I had my mother at the time was seeing this guy. My family came from money, but she picked this guy who was very poor in a trailer, and I'm stuck there with no food. And so I'm sending out these signals that I need help. And I got the cavalry, and it was the mantis beings and grays. And they took me to a military lab not far from there that's in North Carolina it's underground several floors. And they developed me for a PSYOP operation. I think I'm cloned. But it wasn't, the mantis people, the mantis beings, they're very gentle, they're telepathic. The problem, if there was anything that had duality or any harshness, it was the humans. I think they've been with me all along, and I've had multiple races. But what changed is my abilities. I was able to tell at that age, my grandparents, I knew how to pick up a phone and call the phone number, which no one ever told me. I told them 25 minutes away, street by street, how to get there. And my abilities was enhanced. They put me on this machine with electrodes on my head, and there was several of us. There was 8 that were in a program. And I came back enhanced. And honestly, I'm really grateful.
It really began during a past life regression where I met the praying mantises, and I immediately knew that it was them. The first image that came through was the head of the praying mantis. But like the cool thing about it, it was quick instantaneous flash, but within that flash, I was in it for like infinity. It was 2 awarenesses unit at once. And then the next image was this long-bodied silhouette, like 20 to 30 feet high, of pure light. It was humanoid, like, so you have a head, you have the shoulder, and then the arms. And I like received the download that if we really come in our essence of who we are, like your mind would not be able to comprehend who we are. So we have to come in something that like you can comprehend, but you are gonna begin acclimating like to our frequency, like to the light. The last image was of this heart, and it was like boom, 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 like 3 images. This like sliced up heart into infinity. All these slices, and like within the slices, beautiful facets in the clearest crystal you can ever imagine, like intelligence, consciousness of absolute clarity. And like within that infinity, a small dot, small point of light. And I received the download that said, you do not need a big bonfire or a big flame to know how powerful you are. All you need is this little spark of your light. And that small light reflected off the one facet to the next, into infinity, and became this beautiful Merkaba of light. And in that moment, I knew immediately, I am love, I am light, and I'm connected, was a mantis, whatever the case may be. It was so visceral, I could not shake it. I ran on the street basically like saying, I speak to insectoid beings in Washington, D.C., where it's super conservative, just owning that new version of me. It was just magical.
Was that your first contact with ETs?
Aware contact, right? Because going back in retrospect, I had all these little like sprinkles along my life that I was never aware of. That all came back in memory after I connected with the mantises.
Some recall lights in their room, others a presence they couldn't see but could feel. These moments of first contact often come unannounced, disguised as fear or wonder. They leave behind questions and sometimes scars, but with time, they become a breadcrumb trail, leading back to something greater than memory, a truth encoded in experience. For most, these interactions shape their life path forward, and for one man, a scholar of ancient texts, his message came from an unseen realm. Dr. J. Hurtak was shown a future where sound, light, and consciousness converge, What he reveals isn't science fiction. It's a spiritual technology gifted by higher intelligence.
In 1973, as a young scholar teaching ancient languages, the texts of the Middle East, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, as well as the Oriental texts, specifically the Bhagavad Gita, the Sanskrit text, I was in a quandary as to what was the reality behind these ancient texts. Namely, were there avatars, were there beings of light, were there higher angelic forms of intelligence? And so I was searching deeply through prayer. And I, having musical ability and training, began to synthesize certain mantric expressions, the names of God. And at a certain point, a morphogenic field was open with my voice and my intention. And through this field, a tremendous light force appeared in my bedroom. And out of this greater light we call superluminal light, a face appeared. And I was asked the question, was I ready? And I intuitively, mentally said I was. And that light was then extended around my body. I was bilocated into another dimension, which was a ultra-terrestrial experience, not an extraterrestrial experience. And that reality led to the publication later of a book called The Book of Knowledge, Keys of Enoch. And this is why I have worked behind the scenes all these years. That face was a face telepathically mentioned as Enoch, also known as Henoch in the Hebrew, Idris in the Arabic, one who initiates into light. Beyond that initial experience, all I can say is a whole new reality appeared to me of vast extensions of knowledge, scenario abstracts, and expressions that I will call represent a language of light, a higher language communication system, which I've illustrated in my other books.
Some people have had like tangible experiences going on UFOs, interacting with ETs, things like that. I would say that I haven't had that in a tangible way where I have recollection of it, but I have had dream state awareness. And one of the dreams that was a reoccurring dream early, like in my early 20s, was that I was basically I would go to sleep and I would wake up and all of a sudden there would be this glass thing come off my face and all this smoke and gas was coming out. And I'll look on either side and there was, like, as far as the eyes can see, many different structures in the same way, little pods with glass coming out and gas, glass rising, gas coming out. It was stasis chambers in a UFO. And then I would get up, I'd see my arms and my body, and I would go over and I would pick up a weapon and I would be teleported down to a planet and I would be engaging in a war. And so I would be engaging in the war, and many times during my dream, I would not only be the one engaging in the war, but while I'm in the war, in the dream, I would all of a sudden be on the other side of the war, fighting myself.
It appears that we, whilst here on Earth, are more than flesh and blood. Our DNA holds information, light codes, ancestral memory, even galactic history. When activated, it's not just knowledge that returns, but identity. Experiencers often speak of downloads, inner knowings, spontaneous recall. What if awakening isn't learning something new, but remembering what we've always been?
My first experience was as a child. When I was between the ages of 3 to 5, I was visited by the same being in my dreams. And every night they would come, and it's a child being. And I wasn't scared, but I was curious, and for whatever reason, I remember I just wasn't able to share it with anybody else. Not because I was afraid to, but every time I wanted to, something stopped me from sharing. Until about 3 years ago, when I started doing past life regressions. And it started because I started feeling a tremor in my abdomen spontaneously, regularly throughout the day. And that's when I decided I've done somatic work and it's still present. So I spoke to my releases, my spiritual mentors, Heiko and Selena, and we did past life regression. And that was when I was exposed to contact. And also when I saw that the tremor in my stomach was associated to my jaw being locked. And in the regression, what I saw was being brought up to a ship and I don't know for sure if it was, if I was compliant with it, but being strapped to a chair and DNA being removed from both my tongue and also from my guts. It gave me a broader awareness of what's going on beyond what we have been told, and also that what I really appreciate about the awareness of it is knowing that what I'm experiencing in this holograph of reality within Earth, in this time-space dimension that I am aware of, it's not just here that life or stories and also evolution is playing out, but how in every single time-space reality, each feeds into one another. So experiencing this really inspired me to share about the different star systems and star beings with my community. And that was when I created a program called Starseed Awakening to awaken the stars, the traits of the starseed qualities within each and every one of us.
She carries a name tied to one of the most powerful presidencies in American history. But Laura Eisenhower's mission reaches far beyond politics, into the stars. From secret space programs to Earth's ascension timeline, her message is clear. Humanity is not alone and never has been.
It started really early for me. I was processing so much at a young age. And yeah, you just have to follow what you're feeling, like investigate, because really we're digging into like the truth of all that we're made of. And I feel like the inner work really takes us there. Our galactic origins, what's going on with the programmings, what we're seeing in the news. It just all felt very engineered to me. So I had so many questions all the time growing up. And yeah, that was pretty much right off the bat. Pretty early on, I felt the presence of my great-grandfather Eisenhower and the galactic connection that him and I have, which I later found out was connected to his administration, that I was a part of the galactic teams that helped to advise his administration, and that I came in as an agreement to help humanity awaken to what he warned us about in his final speech about the military-industrial complex. So there were a group of ETs that helped prepare me because I was pre-targeted before birth to be steered onto this timeline that involved going to Mars and being a permanent colonist on Mars, which relates to the alternative 3 scenario that was presented to the Eisenhower administration. When he was briefed about a descendant coming in that would come in from the Guardian teams, they intercepted that information and then targeted me with looking glass technologies. And so I was being assisted at a very young age to be able to navigate the craziness of this targeting and also to stay grounded in the mission of staying on Earth and not going off planet and not going along with that particular agenda. And it definitely, I mean, I was like that kid that had imaginary friends. I was like always like out of my body. I was a major astral traveler. And I learned later that I was really not in my body most of my childhood. And I was off in the multi-dimensions. They said I was clearing inorganic entities from wormholes and stargates. And I was like, whoa, okay. And it got confirmed, more and more over the course of time. And I think that's what we, do. We're multidimensional beings. We do things that we don't even realize we're doing. We think we're just maybe spaced out or just really out there. But I was never really in my body. But when I confronted ET, like face to face, they were luminous. They didn't have any, hair, and they seemed to be Arcturian. They were connected to Venus. They weren't the Venusians like Val Thor, but I was connected also. And that's another story about Val.
What did they want?
They had me look through these viewfinders at timelines and what timeline possibilities were in front of us, and to be very strong and grounded in my mission to be on Earth and to not let anybody take me no matter what. And so I was sitting like in this really beautiful other dimensional like landscape with like pink sand and like crystalline ocean water, and these three luminous beings were around me and had me look through this viewfinder, and they wanted me to solidify the choice to stay here. And then later on, when I was recruited to go to Mars, I reflected upon that and just felt, the intuitive guidance to know what to do, and it was really strong in saying no. So the alternative 3 scenario was presented to the Eisenhower administration, supposedly from Zetas, which many felt were service to self. And when I was presented with it and I was researching deeply, I felt this was a well-intentioned agenda that was being agreed upon in the event that there would be some kind of cataclysmic future. But it got so infiltrated that it was more important to, call out the dark technologies that could engineer a timeline to be destructive and apocalyptic, which is also the awakening, right? So Mars colony was alternative 3. The other alternatives were going into underground bases, just basically surviving whatever might happen on the surface level. The surface population being depopulated, New World Order, or possible events that would wipe out the human race. So it was considered a survival colony. But the infiltration part of it was that humans are still being kept from true disclosure. They're not knowing who they're voting for. They're being kept in the dark. So my mission was to stay here and expose as much of the dark technologies and the engineered timelines, and go into the ancient history and galactic history of what's taken place and the dark technologies that have been installed in the planetary grid network, how it's impacted our DNA, so that, in the event that these cataclysms would happen, we would not be on that trajectory, which requires our energy to be siphoned and harvested for it to even happen.
One walks the lineage of presidents, others the path of the healer or channeler. Dr. Marilyn Gawacki, psychologist and lifelong experiencer, opens the doorway between worlds with love, healing, and higher contact. They and many others now awakening from their slumber represent two ends of the same transmission: the return of soul truth and the rise of a multidimensional humanity. This is not just about disclosure. It's about remembering who we are and who's been waiting for us all along.
I was taken on ships by my biological father, and the ships were all children teaching ships, and there were many, many human children on the ship, some ET children. I remember distinctively being placed in front of monitors, and we learned through our consciousness to make sound music and art, and there was a gymnasium where we learned to be out of body doing acrobatics. It was immensely wonderful. Went there several times to learn about expanded consciousness. I didn't know this as a child. It was just wonderful. But I remember being in line, ready to go back to Earth, but I was physically on the ship, thinking to myself, oh no, now my consciousness has to shrink to an acorn size. And then I'd go back to Earth and have no memory. And so later in my life, I began to remember these experiences. And then when Zazar came out 8.5 years ago, I realized that I was getting prepared to channel this amazing, amazing being. That was one reason I was on the ship. But what is so cool, Alan, is all these kids that were on the ship, these human kids, they're gonna wake up to these experiences they had on the ship. They're going to be more expanded in their consciousness, and they're going to bring all that awareness to Earth, and it's happening right now. My father always told me about the presence of ETs, the truth of them, the truth of the cosmos, and my father during the day was this district attorney, very, very left brain, but to me, he was this amazing man who taught me all about the cosmos. So it wasn't surprising to me that these memories would start coming. And then about 2009, I had another contact experience in the dentist office, of all places, and I was reading a protocol on ET contact in the dentist chair as I was numbing, about ready to have an awakening. And this music came across the loudspeaker system in the dentist office. It sounded like star music, like spaceship music. And the tech, I said to the tech, "You guys, your music rocks." And she said, "That's not our music." And she goes, "I don't know why I'm saying this." Now remember, this is 2009. That was the day of the flip phone. There were not pictures sent. There were not music sent. No music could be sent back then. She said, "Look at your phone." I flipped it open, Alan. There on the phone was a picture of a spaceship with hieroglyphics I don't recognize coming down in 2 columns. And the music was being projected from my phone to the entire loudspeaker system in the office. Remember, I'm reading a book on making contact. So I go home and I tell Diane, I had this amazing experience in the dentist office, and she's like, "Okay." But it happened another time that happened to be on her birthday.
Well, it's impossible for that to actually happen, but it did.
Well, here's the thing. It happened on her birthday. Listen to this. Same picture, but on the side, it said birth. It was her birthday. It happened 2 more times. Went to Verizon. I said, "My phone, I have music coming in. I have pictures coming in. What is happening?" I had the dates and times. The tech took it back. He goes, "I'm interested." He was gone for 20 minutes. He came back and he said, "Ma'am, there is no human technological reason these pictures nor music could possibly come into your phone. Nothing has been disturbed in your records. All I can tell you is this is not human created." And then I knew, and again, that initiated more memories of when I was a child and being in crafts, and I knew this was true. And shortly thereafter, Cesar came, and ever since, I've been in a place to want to get the word out of the truth of where we live and the immense realities we live in.
Channeling is not new. Since the dawn of time, mystics, prophets, and seers have served as bridges between this world and the unseen. They spoke in riddles, dreams, symbols, bringing through the wisdom of ancestors, star nations, and higher realms. But now, something has changed. The voices are louder, the messages clearer, the messengers more numerous than ever before. From living rooms to mountaintops, ordinary people are awakening to extraordinary transmissions. Beings of light, galactic councils, ancient guides returning with urgency and purpose. Why the surge? Why now? Because humanity is more than human. We are an amalgamation of multiple, extraterrestrial, and multidimensional beings. We are hybrids. And now the veil is thinner, the earth is shifting, and the cosmos is calling louder than ever before. What was once rare is now rising, because we are ready to remember who we truly are.
So the word contact for us is very perceived on a different plane. So we talk about, how did I make contact, or how did it happen for me? Well, my Octarian father always remind me, says, "Remember, you are one of us." And even though, I embodied as a human hybrid form, so I can be functioning and be among the human race on the planet, I still remain profoundly an Octarian being. So for me, the energy of contact, it's implied, it is embedded in who I am. So for example, instead of being a channel, or some people do, conduit and become channeling, I simply communicate with this other aspect of myself, because I do have my Octarian self. And so it's more of a soul exchange. We call it holographic soul essence exchange. So we're simply really conveying the entirety of our being to another, to each other. So when my Octarian father in my group wants to communicate with me, all I have to do is they tune in and I can feel right away their presence. I can see them. I can even feel them. So there's a sensory point of connection. They tap me on the shoulder, and it says, okay, this is what we wish you to convey. So we become a oneness. We become a one conduit where everything is conveyed through this vessel, through this voice that you got used to hear. It's familiar, it's palpable, it's reachable. So this is why for me contact, it's more of a, well, I am the contact. I have returned on the planet to make contact with you. I'm here to establish that communication with humanity and with Gaia and all species of life living here. So for us, the word contact has a reverse meaning. Mm-hmm. So we're coming to make contact with you.
So I channel, right? And like through my channelings, you know, I get all these messages and I get these experiential things that words, like when I come back, kind of describe them, are not enough to describe. But you also feel energies. So when you open up your heart, all hearts are, all of our hearts are portals, right? So they allow you the way to see things from the heart, to feel from the heart, to experience from the heart, a new way of vision, a new way of experiencing beyond the words. And when I channel, I always tell my clients, go beyond the words, don't hang on exactly to what's being said. Open your heart and allow consciousness to really show you, like within their heart, what message is relevant for you in that now moment. So I channel the praying mantis beings. They come from the Antares Stargate, and they're magnificent beings of truly infinite love, unconditional love. Our humanity does not comprehend what unconditional love means. I'm learning to understand what that is, but I keep knowing that it's a lot more like than what I think it is. They're the architects, you know, of universes. They use color frequencies. They use light, and then sound frequencies to create things. The way that they create things isn't physical like always. It's all like from a consciousness perspective. But our lenses, how we transcribe and translate like what's out there. They also work with many beings from all across the galaxies, and not beings physically, like actual consciousness, like intelligence that goes beyond our realms of imagination. And they're really there to observe and, like, in a sense, record, in a sense, and like see what's happening. And like they do assist in vibrational frequencies, right? They're also known as biogeneticists, and like they work a lot with the gray aliens and a lot of other beings that we are not aware of as humanity, to help awaken, like to help activate, and a lot of other amazing ideas.
My journey started in many ways, but one way was Mother Earth calling me to go for hikes. And when I started walking in the woods, I would feel the ancient spirits, feel the trees talking to me, feel the rocks. And a remembrance started to kick in that stilled me from the movement of our world that's always trying to make us do, and brought a deep sense of peace to my being, to my nervous system, that made me realize there's another way of operating in this existence, and this was the healthy way. So that love of Mother Earth inspired all the journeys. And I soon started to hear the ancestors, soon started to channel the ancestors, go to sacred sites. I would always instinctively know to speak to the guardians of the temple, speak to the guardians of the land. And through that honoring, they would come to me and honor me. There's a reciprocity to communication with Mother Gaia, and I just feel like as humanity, we just need to bring that back.
Across the globe, channelers and experiencers are now waking up with visions of gold ships, star councils, and hybrid bloodlines. Some remember Atlantis, others the stars of Sirius or Orion, and some claim direct ancestral links to the Anunnaki themselves. But these are not just the wrathful gods of stone tablets. They are architects of DNA, keepers of soul contracts, and beings who watch the rise and fall of Earth's forgotten civilizations. What if the return of the channelers is the return of the bloodlines? More importantly, the return of the divine feminine, the activation of a cosmic lineage seeded thousands of years ago. now rising again in human form.
So I have memories of being both a Anunnaki that's on the side of like wanting to enslave humanity, seeing humans as like, we created you to work for us basically and mine gold or whatever that is. And they were the memories that were very challenging for me because the Anunnaki have all of the traits of humans that are both positive and negative, right? Like we are made in their image, and so we carry a lot of their traits. So they're spiteful, they're aggressive, they fight, they bicker, right? So the story of the Anunnaki is that there were two brothers, they split off, they did their different things, had different intentions for humanity. And I remember being on both sides, like the side that loved humanity. And so the memory there was that I was I guess you would call it a high priestess, like of Isis. And I was breeding humanoid babies in my womb. And I loved these babies, and I wanted to teach them everything that I knew. And so we would bring these humans into this world and we would teach them our ways. We would teach them how to navigate with the star systems, how to utilize pyramids, how to use sacred technologies. And they were like our children. Like it was this deep love and reverence, like blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh. But that is not all of the Anunnakis. Obviously there were the other side who didn't really like humans, didn't see us as equals, didn't see us as their own. So that's my kind of framework around that. And it was really hard for me because it was like, not human, what? Like, and it like woke up something in my DNA, like this visceral experience in my body of like this flash of light through my body being like, I'm a creator being, like I have the capacity to create and like move things with my mind and like, what the hell? So that's when it really started opening. And then from there, I started working with different beings approaching me. I worked with the Syrians for a while. They're really good with working with pyramids. So they were helping me to install pyramids, like non-physical pyramid structures around different portals and energy grids of the earth, like energetic power points where the energy could be, I wouldn't say harvested, but like amplified. So they were helping me to set up structures, and I really like their energy. I find them very shamanic, as I talk about them, like I feel it in my body, it's like very grounding, very grounded energy. I like to work with the Arcturians, like they have some beautiful timeline technology that I was working with them with. But for me, like I see these beings as our brothers and sisters, and I personally like to go higher, which is going straight to the source. And so I think they're here to teach us how to access that higher consciousness. And that's what they're here helping us with, because they're like us. I don't want to get attached to like, I was this goddess or that like identity level being, but it was like there were a collective of these high priestesses, these women, humanoids, I guess you would call them, who were birthing these beings who had royal blood. Like it was like a royal lineage. So the priestess lineage is coming from this knowledge that was seeded here from the stars. And this priestess lineage continued through Egypt, through whatever, I don't know when it kind of stopped, around Egypt's time when humans started getting, I would suppose like they were taking on more of these negative traits, and this knowledge and this wisdom was not being used for the greater good of all, and it started to get a bit distorted, and the pyramids were getting used to siphon and drain energy. And some of the Anunnaki and these masters believed that they were gods. They didn't believe that they were they believed that they were God. They didn't believe that they were gods, but they believed that they were the be-all, end-all God. And so for me, that's when things kind of got a bit distorted. And so those who were pure and they were holding this lineage of information, they wanted to keep it sacred and safe, because this is powerful stuff, right? And you don't want these tools that they had that could resurrect people from the dead, that could move matter with like their minds, all these things that they had the capacities to do. They were alchemists. They don't want that to get into the hands of the wrong people. Eventually it did, but they didn't want that, so they buried it. And there was this like almost dying off or going underground of these masters and this lineage. And it went deep underground, and it went underground with with the divine feminine. As a divine feminine, the goddess went underground, and this masculine patriarchy kind of took over, and we went into this darkness, and we won't get into that. But it's almost like it had to go underground to be protected. And so what I and other priestesses, many of us, it's not just me, is to bring that remembering back of working with pyramids, of working with sacred technologies, not only outside of us, like the pyramids, the sacred sites, the portals, the sun discs, the gateways, but within us, because we access these points by going within first and awakening our own system, as above, so below, as outside, so within, right? So all of these portals and gateways that we're working with outside, we can only work with them once we've attuned ourselves internally and harmonized our own internal frequencies. And so that's my role here as a priestess, is to help people to take them into these mystery school trainings, because in Egypt, in Lemuria, and Atlantis, we would have physical temples where we would bring initiates and we would teach them. And I remember that, I remember this so deeply, and I remember the process, and it was like years and years and decades of training and mastery to even get to a level to be able to use these tools, or work with pyramids, or work with free energy, or work with different portals and stargates and beings and whatever, opening up gateways for beings to come. And now it's like, because there's this memory within all of us, it can be accessed really fast once you've awakened within the faculties to be able to do that. And it's a very rapid awakening. So for me, it was like, I just remembered. I remember how to work with portals. I remember all this stuff. And we don't have the physical temples the way that we used to, where these mystery schools take place. But what I do is I take people into an energetic or an etheric temple, a mystery temple, and I just help them to remember. And it's like they have their experience, and it's awakening parts of their soul codex, because I believe all of us starseeds, we have different codes or different technologies or different things from different places, because we're all from different places and different star races, and each star race has a different technology or a specialty or an energy that they're here to bring through. And so I help them to access that through this temple space, as well as teaching them things and attuning them to different things like sun disk technologies, or just different portals of energy, so the different sacred sites or ley lines or chakra points in the earth that have different frequencies.
They weren't just visitors, they were teachers. The ones who came from the stars brought with them more than just ships. They brought knowledge, mathematics encoded in monuments, sacred harmonics hidden in stone temples, maps of the stars carved into desert rock. From the Dogon of Mali to the Sumerians, the Maya, the Vedas, stories repeat of sky beings who descended not as conquerors, but as initiators. They taught us the sciences of sound, light, energy, and soul. They showed us how to raise our consciousness, align with the cosmos, and evolve beyond war, fear, and entropy. But much of what they gave was buried, hidden in symbols, guarded by priesthoods, erased from history until now. In modern times, a new kind of messenger emerged, one that would bridge ancient prophecy with future science. Dr. JJ and Dr. Desiree Hertak received transmissions not just from other worlds, but from higher dimensions of divine intelligence. Through sacred names, quantum codes, and visionary downloads, they uncovered what the ancients called the language of light. Their work reveals that contact is not just physical, it's vibrational. And the message is not just alien, it's transformational.
The message was very clear, namely, our scientific community was drifting towards the destruction of our planet, biospheric collapse, the destruction of humanity, that we as a humanity would have to understand our inherent gifts of the mind, we would call higher gifts of consciousness. In biblical terminology, the gifts of the divine or Holy Spirit. And that would awaken humanity to make dialogue or enter into dialogue with the cosmic cultures.
I think we're seeing this now. Dr. Hertak also was told that 64 areas of science would take a quantum leap. And we're seeing this now with being able to control aspects of light, understanding the power of photons or sound, understanding really cosmic dimensions. In fact, quantum computers are starting to look at what they call parallel universes. I mean, this is all too strange in the 1970s, but he came out with this information that these things would take place. We would have a better energy technology, even bordering now on zero-point energy, those kind of concepts of being able to use like the Alcubierre engine of going through time warps and wormholes. So all these aspects are coming to us now. And the interesting thing is that he was told this information is pouring forth to our planet to advance us. And that means ultimately, and we've seen this because we also live part-time in Silicon Valley, that scientists are actually getting information in their sleep, in their dreams, in their visions that are bringing us forward to what we need to know.
Be prepared for quantum change. Be prepared to go from humankind to spacekind. Be prepared to understand the divine spark which every individual has that can be cultivated through what I will call, in the keys of Enoch, acoustical physics, whereby both sides of the human brain, the male and the female, converge in poetic language, that the marriage of what John the Divine sees with the divine spirit residing in the human and the Christ ideal through which we are prepared for ascension or contact with a variety of worlds. Ultimately, we are to seek the highest level of love, of divine service and wisdom. And in this greater synergy, which is based upon the dynamics of breath, of language, of compassion, we are to emerge as cosmic citizens.
Well, I often say there's 8 billion people on this planet, and the reason we're here now is because there is going to be cosmic contact. We're literally going to graduate from Earth-based reality to a cosmic reality. Dr. Ertak often says from Homo sapiens to Homo universalis. So that's what's so exciting at this time. We no longer are going to be limited for various reasons to Mother Earth. And basically it's just time to move on. It's time to meet our brothers and sisters in space. And that's what we're on the verge of doing.
For many of us, disclosure will not begin with a president at a podium or a crashed craft wheeled out beneath blinding lights. It will begin quietly, within, with a memory, a vision, a knowing you can't explain, a stranger who feels familiar, a dream that leaves an imprint, a message that wasn't from your own mind. The truth will not be televised. It will be lived. It will spread from the mouths of experiencers. It will come from starseeds, walk-ins, hybrids, children who speak of other worlds before they can even read. But for those who are unfamiliar with all of this, how might the next few years play out?
Well, what's to come, I feel, is that we have the knowledge just without metaphysics. Just the books that exist, the psychology that we know, the information that we can just like find on the internet. We have a template to create a beautiful society. We even have structures, governmental societies, intentional communities that already exist that are experimenting with different ways of living. It's there without us even having to download any more information. So the question is, why haven't we done it yet? Right? So there seems to be an old guard, an old paradigm, that an outdated way of thinking that a lot of people are holding on to. And some systems will need to collapse because we can't just change them. They just are outdated and can't exist at all. But we have relied, not only are they, whoever they are up there, created the system relying on it, but they have created a reliance on us where a lot of people don't even know what else is possible without it. So when it comes to your bank account, what if everything just gets reset, right? A lot of people have identified themselves with their jobs, what they do, what their bank accounts are, and all of this. And when we get a reflection of a deeper understanding of what we are beyond all of that, many people aren't even prepared for that. They're so indoctrinated in this old system. So what is to come is a slow decay in a good way off that old paradigm, right? So that people can do what really counts. And I feel what our new world is going to look like is we're going to focus on connection, empathy, community, and taking care of the planet.
As Earth ascends, when we ascend, the light that Earth becomes is so bright that it will look like a star to many other civilizations. And that light will light up the galaxy and help push it to a new tipping point. This is what Cesar says. And then our galactic ascension point will be reached, and that'll affect the galaxies in our entire universe. Eventually, just because Earth humans are waking up, we will create a tsunami across the universe that will enable our universe to create yet another universe. So it's big. So you might say that's one of the reasons he's involved with us. And see, we think we're so little, and we're not.
The thing is that you think of yourself in this fragmented third dimensional base. This is my human personality, my name is, this is my story. And we said this is just an embodiment. It's an experience that you embody. It changes nothing to the quality of who you are. We see your living aura. We see the emanation of light that the human beings generates. We see your capacity for love. We see your capacity for true empathic intelligence. And when you reach this emotional and spiritual maturity level, you're going to rediscover about yourself the mastery energy that you really have. And plus, you think about it a little bit further, from a genetic DNA perspective, you're considered as galactic royalties. You have so many genetic markers from a multitude of, whether it's extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial being, or many very ancient civilizations, that again is on awareness.
We can't wait for permission to do this work. We have to want to do it for ourselves. And I do feel that the more of us walking this path of our lives in truth, in integrity, really choosing to grow up from our whether it's our childhood parents or our governmental parents, it is the sovereignty that we are claiming for ourselves that is our birthright, and that is how we will then begin to continue descending into ourselves in order to really ground down into the truth of who we are, and that is how we can expand limitlessly.
For the people that are watching, that the ETs are already here and the hybrids are already here, and it's time soon for all of you guys to come out. So do not hold back anymore. This is the time you should never be holding back. This is the time to actually come out, and you will have some ridicule, but you're also gonna have a lot of backup, and we got you. So no matter what or who you are out there, it's time for the world to see you, because soon everybody's gonna know us and the extraterrestrials, which are our family. Some are physically hybrids. I mean, you could say we're all hybrids, but some are more physically hybrids. Some of us are soul hybrids. We're a soul that's not from here in a physical human body, which we've done many times on many different planets. Now we're just here for Earth. So you will know right away. You may not know exactly where you're from or how you work, how your life is gonna look, but you know at least that you are one of the star people.
We need something from outside this world to stimulate new ideas of what's possible, right? We haven't solved world hunger, but maybe with new stimuli, we'll have new solutions to the old questions that will make us think differently about reality and come together in different ways. That's the purpose of evolving new neural nets of awareness. You can solve other problems you haven't thought about before in new ways, because when you're stimulated to think new ideas, other solutions come into the field. And that's been our problem. We've been trapped by our own limited, worldview. So when we meet new civilizations, when we have new technologies that spread the information in a faster way, when we look at the ancient knowledge that's been lost to us, that all opens new possibilities in our minds to solve the old issues in new ways, and we come out of the dark ages.
For me personally, I know that they are giving me a call to start sharing everything that I have learned in my own life, but also tapping into the cosmic wisdom that I have accumulated in my travels across the galaxies. I know that I belong to this group that comes from a galaxy that doesn't even exist anymore. And whatever I am here to create, it definitely has to weave in traveling. And it's all about being in different places and being around other people, because that's how we create. As above, so below. We're all cosmic travelers. It's the same pattern that we have already created galaxies before we came here. So everything that I'm doing now, for example, this nonprofit that I'm creating, co-creating, is about stewarding a new consciousness for our planet. And I'm saying it's new, but really it's not. It's bringing what we've already known from our travels in the galaxies into the systems here. So that includes the way that we educate our children, but also it will be a co-creative platform for people who are interested in creating new ways of doing all kinds of things.
So the ETs have come in and have talked about creating a conscious education system. So I'm creating the Limitless Life Institute, which is going to bring people together, and these are going to be facilitators, and we're just going to facilitate the different possibilities. So this is where the done differently frequency and movement comes in. So we're going to actually do dying differently, dating differently, math, science, English, all of those differently. We're going to have a conscious aspect of it versus just learning, teaching, and remote. And they're going to be ushering this in with us. So they're part creators with how this is going to be set up and how this is going to be sort of brought to humanity, because it'll be a holistic education program that's going to supplement the regular ed. So nobody needs to give up their beliefs or what they feel or how they think about things. This is just going to be a visceral experience for people to choose something different, because what we've been doing for so long has been our parents do it that way, their parents before that do it that way, and their parents before that, and it's not broken, so we're not going to fix it. So actually it is broken. Right. And the children coming in now are asking for this, Alan, with the extraterrestrials. Like, we're all kind of co-creating this, like the souls before getting here and the extraterrestrials in the different dimensions are all a part. We're all spinning this ball of creating this unity so everyone is able to exceed and excel in the things that interest them the most.
I think these children are going to be first. I think this disclosure is going to start with these children because they're the closest to us in their DNA makeup. They will be part of some sort of schools where we have regular children and them. And it's going to take time, I think, for them to fully integrate into society, but maybe first they're going to come to Earth in specific locations where maybe government or some other specific schools will be created to start having them integrated and learning how to be on Earth. And I think eventually I see them being part of our society as a whole. It will be accepted. And they will intermarry, possibly intermingle. I think it's going to be a beautiful, and we'll learn a lot from them and they learn from us because they have so much wisdom, but also so much purity and compassion. Many of us have had to tamper our light, so to speak, our inner light, and not let it shine so brightly, or when we go into mainstream, be a little cautious of who we are or what we do or say. And I think to live in a multidimensional, extraterrestrial, benevolent, human ET society and be able to be all of who you are is going to be magnificent. I love this work. I love this work because it's constantly unfolding. I have never gotten to a point of questioning something, investigating something, researching and saying, well, that's a one and done, I'm done, I'm out. It just keeps opening up to more and more and more. And I love that aspect. It's like being the cosmos in the question. I love the aspect that it's this unfolding. It's like the China dolls or the Russian dolls, right? And it's always fascinating. It's a beautiful subject, and I am so happy to be alive for all of this.
These voices are not just stories. They are transmissions, frequencies encoded in human form, fragments of a greater memory returning to Earth. They come from beyond time, from star nations, ancient councils, and realms our language cannot name. They come to remind us that disclosure is not a government event. It's a soul event, one that unfolds through dreams, visions, contact, and the quiet remembrance of who and what we truly are. Perhaps you felt it, that subtle pull from the stars, a word in your mind that wasn't yours, a presence watching, not in fear, but in love. If so, you're not alone. You never were. Because the great return is not coming. It's already here, and the transmission continues.